The Depth to Delve Deep by Rote Writer. Chapter 21 Hopping Hostels. Craigmillar Castle is the closest to being back in medieval times since its journey begins. The compact castle has a £2 cover charge, but with no one at the gate and apparently no one around anywhere in or out of the castle, he walks by. He feels the freedom from not paying any cost for the first time since being in Edinburgh. One thing he does feel, though, is his wrists. He enters the outside court, keeping two beautiful yew trees waiting as sentries within the enclosure. The castle keep looks and feels like many of the images drawn from fairy tale books, where knights in shining armor and maidens in the mood mingle in their magnificence. Like Mary, Queen of Scots, who during her second stay, sick, might have been aware while there of the Craigmillar bond, a pact being made to kill her second husband, Henry Stuart. Up and down into every room, chamber, and spiral stone stairwell he goes, minding his wrists, for they've really hurt. They remind him through the fading haze of the hangover of his exploits the night before. After his fill of the fine fortalice, he returns retracing his steps a few more times just to feel forever an imagination captured by a castle. Right now, returning to the hostel is not a prerequisite, and now that he feels shame for his sordid behavior the night before, he chooses not to be around an environment he's defiled. He heads back to the pub visited the night before. He really goes there to look for his gloves, but once there, he decides to stay. He stands in the corner of the dance floor observing all. He'll stay sober by drinking water the entire night. Rote has no intention to return to the hostel until he's sure the lights are out and all, or at least many of the backpackers are asleep or awake. He leaves the pub without finding his gloves. He walks back to the hostel and quietly enters, making sure to keep his clothes on until reaching the back bunk beds. Before bunking, he washes out the pail and proceeds to climb up on his bed without falling from it that night. He does hear an Irish accent under the influence coming later, making off-the-cuff remarks of the unpleasant kind. Something to do with that fuck who fucking pissed in the pail. Well, at least the accent was nice to hear. Earlier the next morning, Rote's wrists are still sore. They're sensitive to touch, let alone the twang of pain he feels from the torturous tug felt when pulling his two blue bags off the floor. He quietly slips from the dorm and hostel and walks up towards where another hostel is. They seem to be all over Edinburgh. This one has an even better view of the castle. His new digs can be found just across the street from Edinburgh Castle. With no more drinking being the call of the day, he enters his last hostel sober. He doesn't enter alone. He's with his two blue traveling companions along with a worrisome thought.